Well, today we're going to be talking about the difference in dynamic music. Video game music is amazing because it's dynamic. It changes all of the time. Whether we're in battle or out of battle, the music lends itself so beautifully to the emotional and story stakes, and they're really worth paying attention to. We're first up going to be listening to Fire Emblem Awakening Conquest, both Conquest and Conquest Ablaze. Let's check out how those two are handled differently. Wow. I love the percussion in here, and the strings are so nice. Man, that's like so peaceful, isn't it? But it still moves rhythmically because you hear the subdivision, right? Arhu. Dude. That melody is so subtle. Right there, that's a motif. And it like trades off, it like dances with itself. I love the clash between, well, not clash, but this rhythmic balance between the forward momentum and the beautiful lush strings, right? Super legato strings. And you get this wonderful guitar. This is terrific stuff on its own. And this like duduk in the background over here. It's just sustained, you know? Oh. And that subtle Arhu in the back, man, it just like lifts your spirit up. That's delicious. And then the way that the motif comes in here, but it's not so in your face. It's actually like structured like within the musical identity of this particular piece. It's so freaking cool because they could have easily just like shot it up and made it like pop the motif in your face, but they don't do that. They do this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful like just I don't know when this particularly plays, but man, it's really making me want to dive back in. I actually started Fire Emblem Awakening not too long ago on my 3DS, and it's a sumptuous piece of media. Like it's really good, and I'm not like the biggest strategy game kind of guy, but it's just so interesting to experience. So let's check out Conquest Ablaze, the combat version of this. And again, the idea with dynamic music is that we're basically taking something and modifying it to be the more dramatic version of it. And that's something that really exclusively comes out of video games. And it's one of the things that make video games so incredible musically, is that we can take an idea and then go like this, and suddenly we're expanding on it in a really big way. It's really exciting. Oh. I love the drum set instantly. Horns, sharper strings. Ah, it's faster tempo. Oh man. We still get legato, but clearly it's picked up in tempo and in energy. Oh, listen to that bass back there. And then there's the motif, the main theme. Both of these tracks loop, and the loop is so satisfying. It's so like really well thought out melodically that it's one of those loops that you don't care that it loops, because it's such a satisfying musical texture. It just like seeps into you and you just want to listen to it more, you know? Down, down. Love the way the strings are just going while we have this really slow brass emphasis here melodically. And now it switches, and now the strings are the legato ones. That's terrific. Isn't that such a blast? Man, what a great time. And the thing about that is that it's not like a crazy different variation. Like it's not hardcore. It doesn't go from like 0 to 60. Like it just works, and it works really well because it's not jarring. It's still motivating, still inspiring. I love the transition from the calm to the combat version of that. I mean, it's just a really good piece, isn't it? I mean, it's just so satisfying to listen to, and a really terrific piece of music. It's wonderful. All right, let's check out Stories of Remote Antiquity and Inevitable Conflict for from Genshin Impact, prime examples of more dynamic music. Oh, I forgot how good this is. I love how we start with piano and then transition to this gorgeous string. And then we have this pickup here. Really well fleshed out ideas here musically too. Swell. I like how we trade off with the different instruments repeating that little motif there. Da, da, ya, da, da, da. All right, so beautiful. Now we pick up in tempo again. Little bit of space there. Then we shift. We have a different transition. That piano pullback is so wonderful. And then with that cello in there. Right? And it's like they're talking. It's like a conversation. Oh, here we go. Right? So it's so melodic. I mean, like, you could sing all of this, right? And then we have that viola, I think. And we have a recap now with the oboe as the melodic center. A lot of trading off in this music here. A real full orchestral experience too. It's divine. A little bit of tension, a little bit of questioning. And then we're back with the main motif of this piece. We're all coming together with a little bit of variation there, support harmonically in the lower strings. But we're all together. We're kind of unison with these strings here. Now we're back with this longing feeling, don't we? Right? But we always have a pulse. We're always moving. Sublime piece of music, sublime piece of music. So now really quickly, let's quickly jump. Now, I know for you, you can pause and rewind or whatever. For those of us that are here live, I'm not really sure if we'll hear the difference between Stories of Remote Antiquity and Inevitable Conflict. I'm hoping there's a connection there that isn't just a battle theme into a slow theme. But let's check it out, because I can't remember. Oh, no, yeah. There is. So now we have the battle theme. And check how the main theme comes in now. Right? There it is. And the piano's sustaining us. The piano's helping us get from point A to point Z while we have the strings kind of going. Oh, there it is, there it is, there it is. There's that dynamic music. And what's different? Tempo. Tempo is everything in these pieces, especially when we're switching from calm to battle, right? With same motivic ideas, too. Same instruments are kind of leaning in the way they were before, too. Love how fast that tempo is rhythmically in the lower orchestra there, the lower strings. Look how longing too the oboe is in there. Big swell. Then we pull back. Virtuosic playing in those strings, absolutely madness here in this upper violin here. Sort of an as a upper melodic pattern to the piano. Crazy good stuff. Isn't it crazy how the rhythm moves us? Then we reset. Back with that oboe there. Big block chords in the piano. Gorgeous virtuosic playing in the violin and the piano in there as well, again. And then we reset again. Now we have questions again. Oh. Oh my god, the dynamic layers of this are just so phenomenally good. Really interesting thing because the piano goes up as the strings go down. It's really cool how we have this sort of moving in opposite directions. Now that is such a fantastic example of dynamic music. And what's really cool about both of those pieces is that they're all uniquely theirs. Something that was interesting with the Fire Emblem piece, not to its discredit because it was also really good, is that they were essentially the same piece. Stories of Remote Antiquity and Inevitable Conflict felt like two distinct pieces with similar melodic ideas. Now, the Fire Emblem piece was also phenomenal and stunning, so I don't want to take away from that, but it's a really interesting idea, right? That those two pieces are completely separate. This is a soundscape of Genshin's that I personally miss. I'm not really hearing that with the current soundscape, and that's fine. I think what Genshin's doing now is perfectly good, but that soundscape is one that I love, and a great example of dynamic music and how music in video games is just exceptional. Next up, we're going to check out some Rainworld. This is Gate to the Shoreline and Waterfront Facility Threat. Let's check it out. Wow. Oh, okay. Is that... Hold on. Hold on, because that's really intriguing to me. Let me just go back really quick. So like organ. So that's Gate to the Shoreline. This is really funny because this is so subtle, but I'm pretty sure, yeah, it's the same melody. Yeah, right there. What's really impressive to me about Rainworld, and I know this wasn't like a prime necessarily perfect example of dynamic music because we're listening to two pieces in isolation. But what's really cool is that we have a mixture of that previous theme with the new one. And Rainworld's really interesting because as the conflict progresses, there's more and more layering being added to the experience. And so what it does is it creates an inherent sense of dynamic music because each time you're experiencing conflict, it continues to layer onto itself. That's actually really cool. And Rainworld itself as a game is something that I'm actually really intrigued by because I've heard a lot of interesting things about the fact that the environment basically just exists and you're just there and you're trying to get from point A to point B and whatever happens, happens. And if you get in the way of an enemy trying to kill another enemy, well, then you're in the way. And I find that dynamically though, musically, that's really appealing. It was an interesting example and it makes me more intrigued to hear more. So I definitely want to do that. And this is absolutely going to be a game that I want to play and experience for myself because I think it seems really unique and really interesting. A game that features a ton of dynamic music is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Now it makes sense why Final Fantasy VII Rebirth would have variations on a theme because of the fact that, well, a lot of it, first of all, is remixed, and because Square Enix has been doing this a lot lately, where they'll have two variations of something. Another prime example for me would also be the day and night themes that occur throughout the game. I feel like those are prime examples of variations and a play on dynamic music, not just in combat, but also with weather changes or with like time zone changes. You know, I have some complex feelings about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I think that the soundtrack lacks a little bit of identity because it features a lot of composers, a lot of arrangers, and it does have a tendency to just have an overabundance, like, not to make this sound like that's a problem, but there's an overabundance of music, which I think to a degree it's to its detriment. Like there's no like cohesive center musically. Now that being said, the orchestral stuff is really, really, really good and really solid, but it's kind of all over the place, which is a sort of a turnoff for me musically. It's not to say it's bad, because it's certainly the furthest thing from bad. And ultimately, I think that that's really going to come down to each person's individual opinion. And also, I'm not like a huge crazy fan about Final Fantasy VII. I mean, it was the first Final Fantasy I ever played, but really for me, there's nothing compared to Final Fantasy IX. And I know a lot of people feel like that game is kiddish and childish, but those people are wrong. With that being said, let's check out the Grasslands theme and compare and contrast the dynamics between the Grassland theme and the Grassland battle theme. I mean, this is like the classic overworld theme, you know? I do love that counter melody in the lower voices. And then I love how the piano takes over, of course. The reason why I think I like that overworld theme so much is because essentially, in a lot of the themes that I hear in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth that I actually really appreciate is that they essentially are, I feel, the truest vision of Uematsu's composition. Now, what we heard when we played the original, if you've played the original, of course, is the MIDI soundscape. And that soundscape is a classic. It's like something that defined a generation. I mean, for many of us, Final Fantasy VII was one of the first RPGs we ever played. To hear it fleshed out and to hear it be expanded upon with an orchestra is an incredibly, like, warming, you know, it's like hearing the bombing mission with orchestra. And I think that's why Distant Worlds has become so popular too, because that is just so satisfying to listen to and to hear, like, that thing that we heard from a nostalgia perspective as children to then hearing this like fully fleshed out adult version of it. It's satisfying. And I think part of the problem that I have with some of the variations on the themes of Final Fantasy VII in the remakes, they do have a tendency to lose a little bit of their identity from that pure melodic idea. Now, I mean, this is like splitting hairs kind of stuff, so I don't expect everyone to agree with me. In fact, you don't have to agree with me anyway. It's really nice to hear it, but also, like, it gets a little muddled for me. Also, in general, I feel that the story of Final Fantasy VII is so well done, like, on its own. I don't need to know, like, what kind of sandwiches Cloud likes. I don't need Cloud on a what are those things called? Those things, oh God, I don't need him on a scooter or on a Segway. Like, that's not something that I particularly want when I play a remake. I want like a better graphical version of the original, and like usually, like, give me the remaster. But that being said, let's check out the main theme, the battle theme that plays on the Grasslands theme. And there's that motif. Da, 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 da. Ba 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 ba. Da, da, da. So interestingly enough, this could actually be two different things. It could be a variation on a theme because the theme is being borrowed from the Grasslands, and so it's modifying it slightly in a faster way, but also it's dynamic because every time you enter a battle in the Grasslands, this is what appears, or this is what we hear. And then the instant you're out of battle, you go back to the previous soundscape. So you know, it is a dynamic piece that changes every time we move through a different consequence, whether it's a battle or you know, exploring the world and stuff. So it's good. It's really interesting. And I love the tempo. I love the fact that we take the overworld theme and then twist it on its head and increase the tempo, increase the intensity, increase the real punchiness of the rhythm and punchiness of the brass especially. It's a really satisfying way to keep us within the structural identity of the previous song while also modifying it so that we don't pull ourselves out of the drama. Now, I kind of like a good old battle theme. I don't necessarily need the like calm version mixed in. I don't know, but maybe I'm also just biased against Final Fantasy VII. Like, I'll admit it, but for those of you that love this game and love what they're doing, it is just like an artistic masterwork, I think. Especially, I love what they're doing. I'm just not necessarily into it myself, but it's really cool hearing the differences there and how they enhance and modify the piece so that you're still like within the context of the world you're traveling, and for that you can't blame them, because I mean it's cool. Next, let's check out Rules of Nature from Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, the not real Metal Gear game. I tried to play Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance not too long ago. The memes have sort of damaged the game for me. I also like, as like a hardcore Metal Gear fan, the only time I've ever liked Raiden was when I wasn't playing him, and in 4. In 4, he was a badass. I tried to play Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, and it also made me weirdly motion sick. I don't know. I couldn't get into it, but musically, it's pretty freaking sick. And so this is a dynamic piece that plays. Rules of Nature. Let's check it out. It's so good even without vocals. There it is. that is slightly different from the previous examples that we've covered about dynamic music, because those were really like when you're in and out of combat, whereas this is very clearly like a phase shift. But I do think that it's worth bringing up because it's very interesting. I mean, the fact that video game music can do that, where we're like minding our own business, we're fighting a conflict, we're doing whatever, and then the moment happens where everything shifts or we push to that final end. You hear this a lot, and also in Monster Hunter, of course, with Proof of the Hero. But Rules of Nature is one it's just satisfying to listen to, and it really like punches you in the face, especially when the vocals come in. I think it just dials up the stress and stuff. And I think it's also interesting because like theoretically this is just a song. If you just listen to this out of context, it wouldn't necessarily work. But when you pair it with what's happening with Metal Gear and Raiden at that moment, it's a dynamic shift. You know, there's a dynamic shift that occurs in that, and that's what makes it so interesting and cool. And again, this is when like context is so important, when we have, you know, an element of on-screen drama mixed in with an element of musical drama. They come together, they make a delicious sandwich, and that's really important. It does occur in opera, of course, when like a big peak happens or something, but it's very much a video game centric experience. That's when the music and the drama are so intertwined and vital to each other, and music really aids and assists in showcasing how important drama and storytelling is in video games. And that's why we can't really take music for granted, because music makes everything that much more intense. And that's a prime example of it. It's really cool. So another example of this that I actually haven't heard is Nine Souls. It's an 8-man facility going into Beneath the Surface. Really excited to check this out. The OST from Nine Souls that I've listened to so far is absolutely bananas, and I think makes the game that much better. I just haven't had time to actually play it, but let's check it out. This is 8-man facility safe. That's so cool. Tension in that. Having a really interesting growth. I'm hoping it develops somewhere. The chimes, fascinating sound. I want to... We haven't had any melody, though. Fantastic harmony there. The real broken up staccato. How would this just turn into a action sound? That's so interesting dynamically. Dissonant. The harmony is all over the place. It's really cool. Dun, 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 dun. Wow, okay. Beneath the surface now. This is supposedly the action sequence. Similar chimes, sure. Oh, that's dirty. Such a crunch in there. Incredible. I mean, like, so what's incredible to me about that, it's not overtly sexy. It's not, it doesn't go like faster tempo. It doesn't necessarily go, I mean, there's a bit of a faster tempo, obviously, but it doesn't have like an overwhelming feeling of like, boom, it's in your face. It's a big battle theme or whatever. It's actually pretty, if you really think about it, from compared to the other tracks that we listened to today, it really, really, really felt pretty dialed back. And even though it does have a very big crunch sound and it feels very oppressive, it actually leans towards that oppression more so than it leads towards a like shift in battle or like a thrust into like combat. It's interesting how that piece wasn't totally removed from the original, and it still had this ethereal, disturbing sound quality, but also this mechanical crunch that you would hear in something like Silent Hill 2 or something. There's a real heavy emphasis on that. And what's really exciting to me is that that is like deeply unsettling. Rather than being like a thrust into action, it really is a thrust into like concern and fear. And that's really exciting musically. Obviously, we had a faster tempo. We still had lingerings of the previous piece. But the big difference there is that it took the stuff from the previous piece and didn't necessarily reinvent them in a new format. It just dialed up. We didn't necessarily even get a drop per se, but it really felt like it was pressing into us. And that's exciting. That's an exciting example of dynamic music. I mean, we've only scratched the surface about what dynamic music even is. There's so many different tracks and so many different video games that provide that sense of shift from calm to action, or from battle to hyper battle, or tension to less tension. Well, there's just so many things that we haven't touched on, and that's what makes this so exciting. And there'll definitely be more. Definitely let me know which other tracks we should do. And yeah, thanks a ton, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.